So today we're going to talk about something really cool, and it's about how our interpretation of the events and the things that are always happening to us is actually creating our life and our perception of the world. And this is how we see everything. And this has been pretty amazing. And we do this without even realizing it, and it has a profound effect on your life. This was inspired from the movie If with Ryan Reynolds. It's a pretty adorable movie. And this 12-year-old girl says, and I'm paraphrasing, and she says, the most important stories are the ones that we tell ourselves. So everything that's going on around you, you're telling yourself a story. That's an interpretation of your life, a perspective. And what this is doing is actually coloring your life. So let's get into this. You're listening to Becoming Badass. This podcast is going to help you learn how to stop playing small, find yourself so that you can find real happiness being the truest, freest, most badass version of yourself. I'm Phoenix with my master's in counseling, certified practitioner, and trauma-informed coach. And I help you to stop people-pleasing, overgiving, and being too nice to find who you really are, stop shrinking themselves down, trust in themselves, develop their intuition, and create rock-solid self-worth in who they really are. So are you aware that you tell yourself stories all the time? And I don't mean lies. I mean, it's what we tell ourselves when, for example, we don't get a job, a relationship ends, or the person that we want doesn't want us. And this is a huge mistake. But the thing is, we're not even aware that we're making it. We're not aware of what we're actually telling ourselves. But when we do this, we are limiting ourselves and creating our own unhappiness, dissatisfaction, and basically a crappy life. Because if our perception of the things that are happening in our life is skewed toward the negative, then that's going to create more negativity and more unhappiness. But simply by learning to be more aware, more self reflective, we can start paying attention and waking up to the stories that are literally running our lives. So every day when things happen, what we're doing when we're telling these stories is we are creating our own lives. So we can start creating it on purpose versus on autopilot to give you the life that you actually want. This will put you in the driver's seat of your own life and focusing on what you actually want to create instead of thinking that you're powerless to whatever's going on. So you can create a life that you love, full of happiness, joy, and fulfillment. And that's not going to happen on accident. And the truth is, that stuff that you truly want is not just going to fall into your lap. The life you want is not going to fall into your lap, no matter how much you wait for it or how much you chase after it. You're just not going to get it. So if you haven't listened to the podcast I did last week about finding your purpose, then check it out, because that has been extremely powerful in my life. When we can start to wake up and notice the stories that we are telling ourselves about our circumstances, about the things that you don't like, about the bad things that happen to you, about everything that is going on in your life, you could become aware of how you're really creating your own kind of hell in your head. And like I said, this is literally coloring your life. When you can start to wake up and notice the stories that you're telling yourself about the circumstances, the things that are happening in your life, the things you like, the things that are bad, things that we deem a problem, and start to see it from a new perspective, our whole life can change. So literally, it's like you can be seeing your life through black and white and grays versus all of the colors of the rainbow. So your perspective is so important to how you're feeling every single day, because what you put attention on is what is your life experience. So by you putting attention on these things that you don't like, that you think are problems, that make you feel bad, what you're doing by focusing on these things is actually making them more prominent and more powerful in your life. So you're creating a life that doesn't feel good, that feels bad. And we can do the opposite. We can learn to focus on what's going on in our lives. And instead of deeming it as this is a problem, this is bad, this is wrong, start to see it in a new light. And as Wayne Dyer says, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So notice the last time something bad happened to you or you had a problem, notice what you told yourself about the situation. And even ask yourself, okay, What's my childhood like? What's the story that your mind automatically goes to? The last disappointment you had, what was the story that your mind tells you about why didn't you get the thing that you really wanted? Is it, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm not deserving, I'm too fat, I'm not thin enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not worthy enough, I don't matter, I'm unimportant? So, see these things? These are indicating our actual beliefs that are beneath the surface that we aren't even aware of, rearing their ugly head, and they're just lies. But our whole lives are built and fueled by our beliefs. And these are the things that we just see them as this is the way it is. And we have built our life around these, and we've just forgotten about them. And they really feel like facts, but they're in the background all the time, 24/7. And it's when we have a disappointment, a failure, and something upsetting happens or challenge that we're experiencing, and then they rear their ugly head. So it could be, I'll give you a good example. I was in a bad relationship a few years ago, and my partner had some real problems. Problems that I had no control over, problems that I would try to fix. And I spent all my time and energy helping him. And guess what happened to me? I became empty. No wonder. I gave him all my amazing resources, my kindness, love, care, my energy. I did all I can to help him fix himself. I was like, I love this man. I don't want to lose him. But guess what? I had to because he essentially was broken. And the only one he could fix was himself. But when I happened upon him and all these problems, I thought, hey, I can help. I can fix this. That was my perspective on the situation, even though I couldn't have been more wrong. So I wasted years of my life trying to fix something that was unfixable and out of my control. And I remember when the relationship ended, I felt responsible. I felt like, well, why couldn't I fix this? I must not be worthy. I must not be deserving of a relationship. See, these ugly thoughts are indicating what my beliefs were that I had completely forgotten about that are operating beneath the surface that I didn't even realize that are there. So, in those moments where he couldn't meet my basic needs and prioritize me at all, I ended up feeling not enough, undeserving, and not worthy. And the story I told myself was, I have to make this work. I have a child with him. I need to fix this. I need to make it work. And that story is what caused me to waste endless amount of time and care and energy on someone that I couldn't actually help. And it emptied me out because the story I was telling myself was that I needed to make it work, that I needed to fix it. And that eventually somehow it would all work out, which was some BS because I was ignoring all the signs that it wasn't working. And I was ignoring the pain that it was costing me, my children, every single day. Eventually, it was the pain that made me wake up and realize that the story I was telling myself, my perspective on that situation, wasn't true. There was nothing I could do for him. I loved him, but my love couldn't fix him. My care, my time, my energy, all my resources couldn't help him. So I had to pick me. I chose myself and my kids. And then instead of automatically going into the story of I'm a failure, I couldn't make it work, why could I make it work? I'm not deserving of a relationship. And then the story that I purposely told myself was yes, this situation was horrible and heartbreaking and it hurt me and my children. But what it truly taught was to deeply value and love myself and what I was actually worth so that I would never tolerate anything like that again. And I haven't. I created an inner love for myself where I will never tolerate any BS, any manipulation, or any poor treatment or immature behavior because I know what I deserve. I know my worth. So, no matter what's happening in your life, what story you're telling yourself about that failure, that disappointment, that heartache, that breakdown, that challenging thing that you're going through, are you making it mean something bad about yourself? Notice the words that automatically come up. It may be, I'm not deserving. I'm not lovable. I don't matter. I'm unimportant. I must not be good enough. I'm a failure. Notice these words because they indicate your actual belief. These beliefs are stored in our subconscious mind that were created when we were children that now just feel like this is the way things are. They feel like facts. And those beliefs have to be challenged and changed if you truly want to be happy and get the life you want because they are blocks that are getting in the way of you being happy and living your best life. And there's another situation that comes up. So I was experiencing a challenge last year, and no matter how hard I worked and how much time and energy I put into this project, I kept feeling like a failure. Nothing was working, and I was doing this for years, and it was triggering me. I felt like a failure every single day, all day. And after a lot of contemplation and introspection, I learned that all this was something that wasn't working out for me. And what this was teaching me was a lesson. Instead of being like a pit bull and trying over and over again to do something the same way, which is actually the definition of insanity, I realized that all this problem meant that wasn't working for me was that the way I was doing it wasn't working. So I needed to try a new way. So all failure was, and this is what I learned the entirety of 2023, failure is just a lesson. That's all it is. It's not this big bad thing that can destroy your life. And that's one thing they do not teach us at school. They do not teach us that failure is okay, that failure is normal. And if you're going to be successful in life, you're going to fail a lot, especially if you're going after some big dreams. Failure is just a lesson. And if you take the time to learn the lesson, then you will get stronger. And if you continue to believe in yourself, you will reach that dream. So when you experience failure, it means there's a lesson in there I need to learn. I don't need to beat myself up or feel bad about myself because something isn't working the way I think it should. Hear that? The way I think it should. Maybe it's working exactly the way it should. It's not working out. So that means we need to take a step back and see what are we doing and how can we change this? How can we approach it differently? Instead of taking it personal and then taking that out on ourselves. The things that you're experiencing isn't a reflection of who you are, your worth, your deservedness, your enoughness. It literally has nothing to do with you. So that failure that I was experiencing had nothing to do with me. It didn't mean that I was a failure, that I wasn't enough, that I was bad or wrong or flawed in some way. All it meant was what I was doing wasn't working, so I needed to try something different. So it has nothing to do with your identity. The bad things that have happened to you in your life have nothing to do with you personally. They just happen because shit happens, and there's nothing we can do about it. And a big mistake we make is to make it mean something bad, horrible, terrible about ourselves. And now I realize that just because something isn't going my way, there's a problem, there's a challenge, there's an issue, something isn't working out the way I want it to, it has nothing to do with me as a person. It has to do with how I'm going about this situation. And can I step out of the box? Can I come at it in a different way and get creative and try a new solution for that situation? Instead of trying it the same one over and over and over and over again when nothing is working. So the situations, the challenges, the hardships, the losses in your life, are you making it mean something bad about you? That's your story. So I noticed this in my life that everything that happens to me, I'm automatically creating a story. This happens literally constantly. And our minds are literally meaning making machines. Everything that happens in your life, we are attaching a meaning to it as it means this thing, it means that thing. But what if it didn't mean anything? What if you could just look at it neutrally? So if my kid doesn't pick up their clothes, I can think, oh my God, my kid is so messy. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. Why can't they do this simple thing? Or I can look at it, hey, they had a long day at school. They didn't pick up their clothes. I'm not going to make a big deal about it. So the perspective that I am actually in is going to determine my behavior and how I handle the situation and how I'm actually feeling. So notice the story that you're telling yourself about the latest challenge that you had. And how can you take control of the narrative instead of doing it automatically, feeling bad? And that's going to determine how you feel and then how you show up and the actions you take. You can take yourself out of the equation entirely. So when something bad happens, that's normal. When you have heartache, that's normal. When you have an upset, a problem, a challenge, a loss, that's normal. We don't have to make it mean something bad about ourselves, that we're inadequate, that we're wrong, that we are bad, that we are unworthy. ... Insert whatever you tell yourself. And I don't need to compare myself to some invisible yardstick of perfection that I could never meet in a million years and be disappointed when I'm not hitting that mark. Perfectionism is the biggest stealer of your happiness and joy. So don't let perfectionism mess you up. Don't let perfectionism suck your happiness and joy because it will. And I am a recovered perfectionist, so I know this all too well. I lived my whole life like that. So you can take control of whatever story you're telling yourself and subtract your identity, your worth, your value, your goodness, out of that equation and we can make it mean something neutral. And notice that these things are just a part of our life. Failure, heartbreak, upset, problems, challenges, hardships, loss, death are just part of life. But because of the movies and because of the media, it's like it has taught us that when we're having problems, that something is wrong. No, if you have a problem, it means pay attention. It doesn't mean anything is wrong or bad is happening. It just means I need to pay attention to this situation and take care of it. And I shouldn't be upset and think that my life is supposed to be rainbows and unicorns. And there's so many beautiful things about life, like falling in love, having a baby, building a family, finding your joy, finding your purpose. I once heard someone say that life is 50-50. 50% of it sucks and 50% of it is amazing. So watch the story that you're telling yourself so that you can take control of the narrative and you can spin it in your favor. And just take the part about your identity, your worth, your value, and your goodness out of the equation. And with the failure that I was talking about, all it meant is that there were skills and support and more knowledge that I needed to get that I didn't have at the moment. So that failure was teaching me a huge lesson. There's a beautiful quote that shows this perfectly by Eckhart Tolle. The primary cause of unhappiness is never the situation, but the thought about it. Be aware of the thoughts you are thinking. Separate them from the situation, which is always neutral. And a lot of things suck, I'll be honest with you. But it is what it is. And we can learn to not attach anything good or bad to that situation. And we can choose to see the things that happen in our lives as, okay, there's something in here for me to learn. Versus, oh my God, this is bad, this is horrible, there's a problem. Something's gone wrong. And panic and freak out. You see, that's the story. And which story that you're telling yourself do you think is going to create your ability to move through it easier and quicker? Looking at it neutrally or freaking TF out and having a meltdown and thinking, oh my God, my life is horrible. Nothing goes right. Nobody loves me. Our minds can be so dramatic and our minds are really geared to see what is wrong. So remember, the primary cause of our unhappiness is never the situation, but the thought about it. So you can take control of whatever story you're telling yourself and subtract your identity, your worth, your value, your goodness out of that equation. And we can make it mean something neutral. And when you can do that, life just becomes so much easier and clearer. When you're ready to start prioritizing yourself and your own happiness, then grab my cheat sheet below. It's going to teach you how to start putting yourself first and owning your worth 100%. You can become the badass you've always wanted to be, punch fear in the face, and live life on your own terms. Till next time.